Hello everyone, and welcome to our March SDRC and Scottish Funding Council Brain Health ARC webinar. I'm Terry Quinn. You'll be pleased to hear you're only going to hear me for a few minutes. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background to today's webinar and a little bit of information on some other things that are happening in the dementia and brain health research space in Scotland. So if you'll give me a couple of minutes of your time, I will do that, and then I'll hand over to the main event, which is Hamied, Haroon, and it's going to be chaired by Dr. Jodie Watt. So let me just share some slides here. Hopefully this will work. And I'm hoping you now see an introductory slide. So as I mentioned, the main event today is Dr. Hamied Haroon. I'm really looking forward to hearing him talking about balancing work, life, and disability. And your host for the day is going to be Jodie. I'll just go through a couple of things, and I want to just start with a little bit of housekeeping. We do this for every webinar, but it's worth really just reminding ourselves. Our webinars are recorded and they're archived. So if you're not able to catch the full webinar today, it will be available on the Brain Health ARC website. We're experimenting with having webinars at different times. So I'm hoping the evening works for some people. If the time isn't good, do let us know, because we can always look to reschedule. This webinar is part of a series. I'll show you some of the other titles that are coming up. Do please sign up for the whole suite of webinars. I think we've got some really good content this year. We're already thinking about what we might do in the future with ad hoc webinars and with our regular series. So if there are people you want to hear or there are topics you want to know more about, please do let me know. And you can do that through SDRC and through the Brain Health ARC. Usual etiquette for webinars: cameras off while people are speaking, save your questions till the end, and you can use the Q&A function or raise your hand. So let me tell you a little bit about our webinar series. We're now into, I think this is maybe the third or fourth year of running webinars. Last year, I had the privilege of having to coordinate webinars for a number of different organisations, and it was good fun, but there was quite a lot of overlap in the topics. So this year, what I've tried to do is bring some of them together. So for NRS Ageing Scotland, I'll have some webinars around ageing, which might segue into brain health issues. And for the Brain Health ARC and the Scottish Dementia Research Consortium, we'll have some webinars around brain health and dementia. But again, that might segue slightly into issues that are pertinent to people interested in older adults. So what we've done is we have fixed a date in the calendar. First Tuesday of the month will be your webinar date. For some of those first Tuesdays, we'll have a combined webinar. And you can see that we had a combined webinar on definitions of brain health in January. We had a combined webinar on the arts and older adults and brain health on Tuesday. This month we're splitting. So earlier today we had a webinar around empathy in older adult research, and you're tuned in for the Brain Health ARC SDRC webinar. We're back to a combined webinar in April. Then in May we're splitting again with a more ageing focused webinar around cardiovascular ageing research. Then in the evening, one that I'm really looking forward to, Catherine Quinn, talking about the emotional burden of working in the dementia research space. And then we finish with a combined webinar again with Tom Welsh. Mark the dates in your diaries. The other thing I want to do, and this really won't take long at all, is just tell you about some of the other things that are happening in Scotland in the dementia and the brain health space. A number of you will be aware that we ran a challenge. The challenge was launched February last year, so it's now coming to an end. For the challenge, we had a large data set, and we asked people to take the data set and try and answer new questions around dementia. And the response was overwhelming. It really was. So we're putting on a showcase event in Glasgow in March to let people present the work that they've done with the data set. The in-person showcase is now full. There's a finite capacity in the venue, and we filled up very, very quickly. But it's also going to be online. So if you want to hear some of the latest dementia research, particularly around biomarkers, and also current thoughts on how we might use data to progress dementia research, you're very welcome to join that online meeting. The details are on the slide, and there's a code there that you can scan. Part of the remit in the Brain Health Arc is to try and create new collaborations and try and create collaborations in spaces where perhaps people haven't worked before. So I'm excited about this meeting that's happening in April in Edinburgh that hopes to bring together people from the creative arts community with people from the dementia and brain health community. So registration's still open for that. We've had lots of interest, particularly from people working in the creative arts industry. I'd like to see some more people coming from the brain health and the dementia space, particularly people coming from an academic brain health and dementia place. So please do register for that. It'd be great to see you there. Following that meeting, we're going to have a funding call. So what I'm hoping is that new collaborations will form at that meeting, and then you'll be able to apply together for some seed funding. And a date for your diary. The Scottish Dementia Research Consortium have an annual meeting. It's a meeting that brings together academics, clinicians, and people living with dementia, and it's always a great meeting. The meeting this year is going to be in Edinburgh, 6th and 7th of May. We haven't opened up registration yet, but that will be coming, so keep an eye out for that, and I really do hope to see you there. So if you want to know more about any of this stuff, or any of the other things that I don't have time to tell you about that are happening in the dementia brain health space, join up to our mailing lists. The homepage for the SDRC and the homepage for the Brain Health Arc are both there. It's easy and it's free to join the mailing list. I would recommend you join both, and we can keep you up to date with everything that is happening. So you'll be pleased to hear that's enough from me. We're going to move on to the main event now. And I'm not going to do the introductions. I'll show you the introductory slide, but I'm going to hand over at this point to Dr. Jodie Watt, who is going to chair the session. So, Jodie, over to you. I'm really excited to hear what Dr. Haroon has to say. Thanks.
I have the honour of introducing Hamied today. So I will tell you a little bit about Hamied, but Hamied is also a friend of mine. And we met in the International Society for Magnetic Resonance in Medicine. It's always an honour to hear Hamied speak. He always has a lot of interesting things today, but this is a particularly nice combining of a lot of different aspects of my life for me. So yeah, it's exciting to have you here today, Hamied. Dr. Haroon is a research fellow in quantitative biomedical magnetic resonance imaging at the University of Manchester. Hamied is a proud lifelong disabled person, Mancunian, husband and father of two, and a Muslim of Pakistani heritage. Hamied is also a founder and chair of the NADSN, the National Association of Disabled Staff Networks, a super network that connects and represents disabled staff networks in universities and colleges, NHS Trusts, and other public sector organisations across the UK and beyond. In his talk, Hamied's going to discuss a bit about his journey into science, being disabled at work, and disabled staff networks, and collective activism to cause change. So, Hamied, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jodie. What an intro. Yeah, and I love that video from Terry. So thank you, Terry. Thank you, Jodie. And thank you, Sheena, for the invitation and for making it possible for me to be with you this evening. So let me just share my presentation screen. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, we can see.
Excellent. So as Jodie said, my name is Hamied Haroon. I'm a research fellow at the University of Manchester in the Manchester Neuroimaging Group, and also part of our Geoffrey Jefferson Brain Research Centre in Manchester. That is a collaboration kind of centre that brings together all sorts of teams around brain research. So great to be part of that. And yeah, so I'm going to be talking about balancing. I don't know if I can call it balancing, but work, life, and disability, and what that means to me. So let me take you on a bit of a journey on my story to begin with, which is how I like to open things up. So I started life, hold on. Yeah, so my primary school years were at a special school in a very leafy part of Manchester. The children there had all sorts of impairments, disabilities, if you like. And I learned some of my life's most important lessons there about making the best of being disabled. There was no special treatment there. We all had to get on with it. And yeah, we did lots of fun things like wheelchair dancing. So this is a picture of me with my friends at a wheelchair dancing competition. I think we won a trophy there as well. But yeah, we did fierce sports competitions, wheelchair dancing competitions against other special schools locally, nationally. We won all sorts of prizes and trophies, but there was the academic stimulation just wasn't there for me. But I was really lucky. I was at the right place at the right time to be chosen as one of the first disabled pupils in Manchester at that time to attend the only accessible mainstream high school in Manchester. At that time, and boy, was it a rough school, but it was my introduction to the real world. And I absorbed everything that high school had to offer. And my favorite subject was science. So TV programs like Tomorrow's World and Star Trek, absolutely loved watching those on the TV. They fueled my passion for science, and they were portals into the possibilities of the future. If we opened our imaginations and our minds, where could we be? Some of those things have come to pass. Like I remember on Tomorrow's World, the big brick mobile phone that was being presented on Tomorrow's World as a very futuristic thing. And here we are today, every one of us almost holding these small and tiny mobile phones in our hands that have capabilities to connect us in all sorts of ways. And the way that Dr. McCoy on my favorite sci-fi program, Star Trek, the way that he used to wave this little probe over an ill person, diagnose their illness and cure them straight away without a hitch. That made me think, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to cure people. I want to be a doctor. But sadly, when the time came to seeking careers advice at school, I was told that there's no way I could pursue medicine with my disabilities. So my mum said, never mind. You can become a lawyer instead. They earn good money too. But I had my heart set on science. And I achieved the best GCSE grades of my year and went on to study maths, physics, and biology at A level. And it was during a physics class that I suddenly spotted a book on the physics teacher's shelf that was entitled Medical Physics. And this was like being struck by a bolt of lightning, that I could actually enter the medical field as a physicist rather than a medical doctor. So that's what I pursued. That's the way I went. And I went on to read physics at university, and I was elected to the Students' Union as the Disability Access Secretary. And just a chance, ended up doing a bungee jump in my wheelchair from a crane on the side of the main road through the university campus. And that was in protest at the lack of access and the exclusion of disabled students in some of the university's buildings. This slide here shows me, shows a snap of me upside down, mid bungee, which featured in some major newspapers such as the Times Higher Education, in fact. And this was the start of my brand of disability activism. Look, just look at how much hair I had at that time. See, I did have that. So I wanted to do an MSc in medical physics after I graduated, but I had no way to pay the fees. And at that time, the brilliant Snowdon Trust came to my rescue at that point. And again, when I wanted to do a PhD following that master's degree. So I'm now an ambassador for the trust, and also, in fact, on the panel that selects students for the Snowdon Trust Master Scholarships now. And it's wonderful to kind of see the new generation coming forwards. I put this big green tick on a picture of the wonderful medical school. could be a better building. But anyway, the wonderful medical school at Manchester University, put a big green tick on that because that's where I always wanted to go and study medicine. And I entered it not to do medicine, but to do medical physics instead. And I joined the Center for Imaging Sciences. And my PhD supervisors were these two wonderful people, Professor Alan Jackson, Professor Steve Williams, one a radiologist and a proper doctor, and the other one a chemist by training. And both of them were so very supportive in my PhD and allowing me to start and to continue and finish the PhD in the way that in the way and the time that I could. So as part of my PhD, I was involved in a major European trial of a new anti-angiogenic drug, so a new anti-cancer drug. When tumors grow beyond a certain size, they start generating their own blood vessels to deliver the nutrients they need to spread, which is what angiogenesis is. And these new blood vessels are very immature. They've got holes in their walls, so blood plasma can leak out. And we can measure this with MRI imaging and analysis techniques, which allow us to detect the extent and aggressiveness of cancer. So on this slide here is showing us that leakiness, these colors on this image of liver metastases here, and the kidneys in the back here. So it's kind of, that's the front of the body, that's the back of the body. And we can see that metastases spreading through the liver with all these leaky vessels going on. That's before taking this new anti-cancer treatment. And then 48 hours afterwards, looking at exactly the same region, we can see that those leaky vessels, that metastases, that cancer now is hugely subdued due to that anti-cancer therapy. And we could measure that with MRI. This was probably the first time that imaging was used in a drugs trial of this kind, and especially on a European level. So to be a disabled student involved in such a major study that had huge implications for the field was a huge privilege for me, and great fun as well. So actually the work led on to me being able to go to conferences and present the research that we had done at major international scientific conferences. So Jody just mentioned the International Society of Magnetic Resonance in Medicine, which is the professional association we belong to, and they have conferences in some exotic places in the world. So I've been lucky enough to get to Honolulu in Hawaii, Cannes in France, and what gorgeous, gorgeous places they are, stunning, all for the sake of science, of course. And the way that my academic abilities were the only thing that mattered when presenting my results at these conferences, regardless of my impairments, my physical impairments, convinced me that academia was the place to stay. So I was fortunate to get my, PhD. I got my thesis completed and became that doctor I always wanted to be. I was very fortunate to get my first research associate job shortly before I finished my PhD in the same department, about 21 years ago, I think now. And I've worked on successive fixed term, like short term research projects since then. Since then, I still don't have a permanent position, but the support from my department, from my line managers over the years, has enabled me to stay in Manchester. Many people have to move from place to place in order to progress their academic career, but that wasn't practical for me. So now my current research project is on new ways of diagnosing dementia. So the brain images on the top row of this image here show a healthy older volunteer, and compare these brain images compare these brain images to the ones on the bottom, which are of a person living with late stage dementia, Alzheimer's disease, in fact, reflected by the shrunken brain. So kind of the brain is withering away, and you can see the enlarged ventricles here that are filled with fluid. These black cavities here are fluid-filled spaces within the brain. So they enlarge and the brain dies away. We have a chance of treating dementia if we can spot it early enough. So we can try to do measurements of different regions, different areas of the brain, and measure their volumes and how that changes over time. But there's got to be something more kind of deep down, more subtle that's going on in the brain before the brain starts to shrink. So Dementia's Platform UK, the Medical Research Council, EPSRC and others funded a state-of-the-art PET MR scanner at Manchester University, on which we collected some advanced imaging data for a study that they funded, which was the Sensing and Imaging for Diagnosis of Dementia study. And now that's continuing with the Alzheimer's Society funding to kind of look on how we can actually create a protocol that can be done in clinical time on an MR scanner in hospitals. So these maps here show kind of some of the cutting edge magnetic resonance imaging that we're developing to detect those early microscopic changes in the brain that lead on to the devastating condition that is dementia. The images on this slide characterize the microstructure of the brain by probing the diffusion of water molecules in a human on the left side and a rat on the right side. So this is just like fundamental physics at its best in actually investigating the structure of the brain. And the benefit of using rats, of course, is that then we can cut their brains and actually validate, compare the measurements with real open sections of brain to see that our images are telling us what's really going on. And we can do with diffusion MRI, we can do a technique called tractography, where we can look at the connectivity of the brain from one bit of the brain to another and how that changes in the course of healthy development and also when people get different conditions. So the question is, do I enjoy my job? And I would say absolutely. I love what I do. I collaborate with all sorts of clever and inspirational people across the globe. People like Jodie, for example. I get to teach and engage with bright young people. I get to be creative, facing new challenges every day. And those challenges that keep you up at night, wondering how to solve that problem. Presenting at international scientific conferences and working with a small company, a small startup company to translate our research for real patient benefit. That's something that's really important to me, is that the research shouldn't just be papers that end up on someone's shelf, but it's actually going to be used to help patients, to help people in the future in detecting and diagnosing these conditions. However, in order to achieve all of these things I enjoy, support is crucial. So the integrated support I have is so important to me and lets me fulfill my potential with independence and confidence. And I need that support. Without it, I couldn't have studied or do my job. So as a disabled student, I had the disabled students allowance, which sadly, since my time has kind of changed a lot. And additional support from the Snowden Trust made a lot of things possible for me. But on becoming a member of staff, I suddenly lost all of that support. Thankfully, though, someone in the HR team actually heard about this scheme that the government ran that ended up actually being access to work. And it was really lucky that he had heard about this and pointed me in their direction, because very few people know about access to work. Even now, it's still a very poorly promoted scheme. It's like the government don't want disabled people to know about it, and they still don't want us to know about it or to use it. Access to work allowed me to employ my personal assistant to help me with everyday physical tasks that I couldn't manage at work, to help me to actually get to work, to go to conferences, which is a vital part of being a researcher, even if the location isn't always as exotic. And without this support, I would literally have to stay at home. But also, that gives me the chance of giving somebody else a job in terms of the skills and the kind of opportunities for somebody else to come and support me is adding to the economy in so many ways. So yeah, that's what the government don't see is the win-win. So I myself, the condition I have is a genetic condition. It's known as Charcot-Marie tooth disease. It's got nothing to do with my teeth, which are great. It's actually named after 3 neurologists who discovered and described this condition. It's also known as hereditary motor and sensory neuropathy, and it affects the peripheral nerves in my body and has done since I was little. So I was born with this condition. And what's happening, they think, is the myelin sheath around the neurons are wasting away. And so then the axons waste away. And so then the signals don't reach the muscles and allow us to do anything. Jodie, am I okay for time?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, great. Just tell me when I'm getting close to the end. So yeah, and this leads on to all sorts of symptoms. And basically I get all of these things. The one I can show you is the floppy hands right there. So I can wave my hands better than anyone. But science actually is like key to like understanding this condition and it not just being, you know, so in our culture, many old ladies would turn to my mother and say that the reason I have this condition is because she committed some sins, some really big sins. And so the effect of those sins, the kind of payback for it is that I have this condition. It's like, how's that fair? How does that work out? But the science explains that actually what it is, nothing to do with anyone's sin or guilt. It's a condition that's happened because of genetics. So technology, science and technology play a huge part in my own life. These are what are known as knee, ankle, foot orthosis, or calipers, as I like to call them. When I put them on, they allow me to stand on my own feet. For a bit, I used to be able to walk everywhere with those calipers on. For somebody who can't walk without them, I think that's a miracle. And of course, my powered wheelchair that gets me about everywhere these days, and are my Hot Wheels. So, did my disability activism stop at the bungee jump? No way. I helped to start up and lead the university's disabled staff network. And this was at a time when there was no support for disabled staff at the university. I got to meet with the Vice Chancellor at that time, Professor Alan Gilbert, who sadly passed away, but he was a lovely guy. And we did I did a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, all around the experiences of disabled staff at the university. And we were instrumental in making our university one of the first to provide dedicated support for disabled staff, alongside the support already there for disabled students. So this is the Disability Advisory and Support Service at the University of Manchester, and disabled staff feature on their list of who do we support, which is an achievement we are really proud of. So back in like 2013, 2014, we started being contacted by disabled colleagues and people who wanted to set up their own disabled staff networks at other universities around us, NHS Trusts, etc. So we decided, myself and Melanie Sharp, we were co-chairs of the Disabled Staff Network at that time, and we decided to put on a national conference that we entitled, "What Are We Hiding?" And it had a double theme of the hidden disabilities or hidden impairments and the hidden contribution that disabled employees make to the nation's economy, something that was not talked about at that time. And so we held that at the University of Manchester on the 6th of June, 2014. It was a brilliant occasion. We had around 100 people, 100 disabled colleagues come from all over the country, literally. Even up from Scotland, they came to Manchester from all around. And we were awarded for our efforts with the university's first Making a Difference award for social responsibility, which was fantastic the May afterwards. Very sadly, Melanie, my very good friend and co-chair at that time, actually passed away just recently, just last week, in fact. She passed away. So these pictures are in honor of her and all the amazing work she did for us at the university. So at that conference that we held, we launched the National Association of Disabled Staff Network. We decided that we're all facing the same kind of struggles, the same kind of barriers within our institutions and organizations across the country. So why not come together? And that's what we did. So we are a super network of disabled staff networks. We focus on the tertiary education, that's universities and colleges, and public, such as the NHS Trusts, sectors. And our strapline is that we are defining, connecting, and representing ourselves. We welcome any individual and organization from any sector committed to advancing the equality, equity, diversity, inclusion, and access of disabled staff. We act as a collective platform to share experiences and good practice and examine challenges and opportunities together. We are nothing to do with the government, thank God. We are independent, we are self-determining, intersectional, and a dynamic community led by and made up of impassioned disabled people, really impassioned and bold and brave and amazing disabled people, who many of whom are my role models, people I look up to. So I want to take a moment and show you some of these words here. So abnormal, invalid, handicapped, spastic, dumb, vulnerable. I'm allowing myself to say these words here because I want to ask you, how do these words make you feel? These words are words that have been applied to me. I've been called many of these words many times. How does it make me feel? It makes me feel rubbish. It makes me feel inhuman. It makes me feel invalid. It makes me feel like I don't belong, like there's something very wrong with me and I'm not normal. I need to be made normal to fit in better. That's exactly the concept of the medical model of disability, that the problem is us and we need to be fixed. There's something I learned about as I kind of grew up, especially at university. I learned about the social model of disability. What brilliant concept this is. And it says that the social model of disability identifies systemic barriers, negative attitudes, and exclusion by society, whether that's on purpose or inadvertently, that mean it's society and the way it's structured is the main contributory factor in disabling people. So I am disabled by society. What a whole different perspective that gives you, and power as well that gives you. This social model of disability, it talks about prejudice, ignorance, stigma, negative attitudes, inaccessible places, transport, conversations, and information. And there are always newer models, like the whole concept of disability is evolving all the time to include chronic illness and neurodiversity. And there's a brilliant video by us as disabled people about what the social model means to us on the Scope website. Very worth having a watch of that. So yeah, this is like a liberation from being always kind of thinking there's something wrong with me and I need to be put right. Actually, there's something wrong with society. That's what we need to deal with. So there's also the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that pretty much says the same thing and puts in the context of human rights and social justice as well. Just so very important. And actually enshrined within the UN Convention is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, or disabled people, as I like to call it, on the 3rd of December every year to celebrate us. And of course, our mantra always is that there can be nothing about us without us. And to be very frank, everything is about us, and we need to be front and center in any conversation that affects our lives. So we come on to the mod. Are we all right for time, Joe?
Yeah, it's 22 just now, so probably 5 more minutes or so. So we've got time for questions, if that's okay. Obviously, if you need to go longer, you need to go longer.
I'll try and keep it short now. So this whole idea of an ideal academic was came out of a study by Kate Sang and colleagues at Heriot-Watt University, in fact, on disability in academic careers. And these notions that you need to be able to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You need to be able to go to conferences. You can't have any dietary requirements. You can't have any caring responsibilities or need the toilet even to be an ideal academic. This is a model that many people are made to fit into, to become an academic, to be successful in academia. But this model, this mold, if you like, is breaking people, and people leave because they don't fit this, because they do need the toilet. So what we need to do is to break the mold instead. Why should the mold be breaking us? And many of my colleagues within NADSN have wrote some amazing books exploring ableism in academia and disability in terms of that oppression of disability in higher education, investigating people's perspectives, identity, and stigma, and the whole thing around disclosure of disability as well is not a straightforward issue. Our friends in the Women in Academia Support Network have published about roles in research, about varied roles and career pathways into research. And I've featured in the Superhero Scientist book, which explores scientists of all sorts of backgrounds, from history all the way through to the present day. So I was profiled by the Royal Society quite a few years ago now, as part of celebrating scientists with disabilities, which is a brilliant collection. You should go on their website and check this out. Brilliant collection of disabled scientists and their profiles, the work that goes on, much of which is never really talked about, never really comes to the front. So I'm joined in this picture by my very good friend, Jessica Boland, who's also at Manchester University. And I was very privileged to be taken on as a member of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee for the Royal Society, working with some amazing colleagues from all sorts of backgrounds. And these guys down here, Paul Upchurch and Sarah Lynn Van, and Dorothy as well, in the Disabled Scientists subgroup, where we're currently working on a project looking at the experiences of disabled scientists and how academia can be more supportive and less ableist around that. We've been working within NADSN. We've set up our own STEM action group, and we've created a white paper that's entitled Towards a Fully Inclusive Environment for Disabled People in STEM. And this is what we're calling a white paper, in other words, a position paper of where we stand. And our recommendations come under 3 major themes: enabling inclusive cultures and practice, accessible and proactive funding, and enabling accessible digital and physical environments. So this is part of our recommendations project from the action group, and we're going to be launching our white paper at your neighbours, in fact, at the University of Strathclyde on the 31st of March. And anyone who'd like to come along would be very, very welcome. So please do let me know if you'd like to join us for that event. It will be an evening event from 4 till 6 o'clock. So we're working with our white paper and other publications with funding bodies and learning associations across the country in all sorts of fields to bring disability up the EDI agenda. Much of the time, disability disappears under the radar of EDI, but we're making sure that can't continue. Working as well with the all-party parliamentary group on diversity and inclusion in STEM, the EDI caucus, which UKRI and the British Academy have funded, working with those guys as well. And NADSN is a leading partner with the University of Sheffield on the Disability Matters project, where disabled people are being put in the driving seat of health and science research. And another project with them, the Welcome Anti-Ableist Research Cultures project, which is trying to break down those barriers we face as disabled people in the research system. I'm going to skip this bit and just talk very quickly about something else we're doing at Manchester that we're hoping to roll out very soon across the country, is this Let's Talk Disability series, where Professor Jackie Carter and Kathy Bradley have been leading this incredible project of matching a disabled colleague, a disabled member of staff, with somebody senior at the university. So here I'm joined on this first episode by Nancy Rothwell, our Vice Chancellor, President Vice Chancellor at the university, talking about our everyday experiences of disability and ableism at the university. And then I joined a more recent episode with our new President Vice Chancellor, Duncan Iverson, again, talking about those experiences and how we can move forward. This time I was hosting and Jackie was in the seat with Duncan, but talking about those experiences and, more importantly, coming away with actions of what each would do going forward. So I think I'm going to stop there.